Welcome back. Welcome back. Your man Diamond K in here, of course. The Diamond K Show on firetelevision.com. And sad news to report, legendary actor from the golden age of Hollywood, Sidney Poitier, whose barrier-breaking career spanned more than 7 decades, died last night. He was 94 years old. In 1964, he became the first black man to win an Oscar for the Best Actor for his performance in Lilies of the Field. Some of his other major films of the decades were, of course, A Raisin in the Sun, To Sir with Love, In the Heat of the Night, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. Many of his best-known films explored racial tensions as Americans were grappling with social change that was brought on by the civil rights movement. So he was an activist. He was putting in that work. So his movie struggled for distribution in the South, in America, and his choice roles limited, to what these white-run studios would produce. There were certain roles that he just would not take. And racial taboos, for example, precluded him from most romantic parts. But he was a dignified actor, dignified roles, helped audiences in the 1950s and 60s see black people not just as servants, but as doctors, as detectives, as teachers. So Mr. Poitier was a groundbreaking actor. And at the same time, as the lone black leading man in the 1960s Hollywood, he came under tremendous scrutiny. He was often hailed as a noble symbol of his race and endured criticism from some black people who said that he had betrayed them by taking these sanitized roles that some people thought were pandering to white people. But he was a proud black man, the youngest of 7 children. Poitier was born several months premature in Miami on February the 20th, 1927. He was so tiny that he could fit in his father's hand. His parents were tomato farmers who often traveled to and from Florida and the Bahamas. He was actually not expected to live. His mother consulted a palm reader who, kind of quelled her fears. She told his mother, "Don't worry about your son; he will survive. Don't worry about your son; he will survive." And survive he did. Sidney Poitier refused to take roles that he felt were demeaning. His first movie was 1950's No Way Out, and he played a young doctor who must treat a racist patient. Now, for a dark-skinned actor in the 1950s, finding complex roles was difficult. It was difficult. Black people were new to Hollywood at this time. There were almost no frames of reference, except a stereotypical one-dimensional character. Sidney Poitier told Oprah Winfrey. Now, early on, Poitier made a conscious decision to reject roles that weren't consistent with his values or that reflected badly upon his race. One of the things that was really great about him was that when he was a struggling young actor, he turned down a role that paid $750 a week because he did not like the character, a janitor who didn't respond after thugs killed his daughter and threw her body on his lawn. Refused to play that role. Even at $750 back in that time was a whole lot of money. Some people might take that role now, right? Sidney Poitier, not one of those people, did not do that. Still, by the late 1950s, Poitier was struggling trying to find regular acting work. He first appeared in the Broadway production of A Raisin in the Sun in 1959 and starred in the movie version 2 years later. Legendary film there. Then came Lilies of the Field, The Greatest Story Ever Told, A Patch of Blue. And in that one, his character had a romance with a blind white woman. That was controversial at the time, no doubt. Definitely controversial. Racism was horrendous, but there were other aspects to life, Poitier told Oprah Winfrey. There are those who allow their lives to be defined only by race. I correct anyone who comes at me only in terms of race, he said. Now, in 1967, and one of the most remarkable years any Hollywood star has had before or since, Poitier starred in 3 high-profile films that year: To Sir with Love, a British drama about an idealistic teacher who must win over rebellious teenagers in the tough East London school. So that was that. Now, at this time, Poitier was commanding a whopping $1 million a movie. This is in 1967. And filmmakers weren't sure that they could afford to hire him. So they struck a deal to pay the actor scale, which is the minimum legal amount, in exchange for a percentage of the movie's box office grosses. Now, that is large for him, getting a piece on what they call the back end. Now, this is common in Hollywood today, but it was a radical idea at the time, and a very savvy one for Poitier. Showed his business sense. It showed that he was thinking about this on a deeper level. To Sir with Love became a big hit and earned him a huge payday. Huge payday. Next up was In the Heat of the Night, which gave Poitier his most enduring role. He played Virgil Tibbs, a homicide detective passing through Mississippi when he was detained by a bigoted white police chief as a possible suspect in a murder. So Tibbs reluctantly agrees to stay and help solve the case, and the two men eventually find a mutual respect. So groundbreaking role here. The movie gave Poitier his most famous line, "They call me Mr. Tibbs," he said. And that was that cry for respect after a demeaning slur that the white actor's character said. I mean, there were a lot of memorable scenes in that movie, just legendary. But you know, there was the Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, another message movie. You want to use that one, message movie, and this was about racial tolerance, in which his doctor character must persuade Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn's characters to let him marry their daughter. The movie was released only 6 months after the Supreme Court made interracial marriage legal in this country. So this was groundbreaking, truly groundbreaking. But around the same time, some black people began grumbling that Poitier's saintly, non-sexualized characters bore little resemblance to the complex realities of African American life. They would say all the roles that he plays, everybody ain't like that. Let's show how we are, and we are a lot of different things. So there was that criticism. And I'm sure that he, being a proud black man, did that kind of stung. Some of the criticism stung. And there was, this is 1967. 1967. So a black playwright, Clifford Mason, in a 1967 New York Times column, argued that Poitier played essentially the same character in every movie. A good guy in a totally white world with no wife, no sweetheart, no woman to love or kiss, helping the white man solve the white man's problems. Ooh, ouch. That criticism definitely stung Poitier. It stung him so much that he left and went to the Bahamas for a while. For a while. And he said that he was the most successful black actor in the history of the country. The criticism I received was principally because I was usually the only black person in the movies. He was basically saying they was hating on me because I'm working and I'm the only one here. Personally, he said, I thought it was a step forward. This is Sidney Poitier talking about this time. And he's speaking about, this is in an interview that he did with Oprah Winfrey. Just tuning in, your man Diamond K in here, of course, the Diamond K Show. We are talking about the legendary, groundbreaking Hollywood actor, director, activist, the late, great Sidney Poitier, who died last night, 94 years old. You remember the movie Stir Crazy? He directed that. Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder, the prison comedy. One of his biggest hits. I love that movie. The movie is hilarious. Of course, in the 70s, Poitier scaled back on acting and turned to directing. So early in his career, he's one of the only actors on the screen. Now he is directing and helping other black actors. One of the only black actors on the screen is what I meant. So Poitier scaled back on that acting, started directing these movies, teamed up with his pal Belafonte for the Western Buck and the Preacher. That was his directorial debut. He directed that. He also directed and co-starred with Bill Cosby on the comedy Uptown Saturday Night, another classic movie. Let's Do It Again, a piece of action, featured a largely black cast. So for those that were saying basically or mad at him because he was the only black guy there, now he's putting other people on. And that he wasn't in a position early in his career to put other people on. But now he'd been in the game for a minute, 20 years or so. He definitely was in a position to be able to put people on. And that is what he did. So by 2000, he had retired from acting, choosing instead to play golf and write a book, The Measure of a Man, a spiritual autobiography, in which he described his lifelong attempt to live according to principles instilled in him by his fathers and others he admired. Being reflective at this time, looking back, in later years, as Hollywood sought to recognize a man whose example had opened up doors for so many other black actors, the accolades really began to pour in. 2001, he received the Honorary Academy Award for his overall contribution to American cinema. The following year, in accepting his Best Actor Oscar for Training Day, Denzel Washington said, 40 years I've been chasing Sidney. I'll always be chasing you. Sidney, I'll always be following in your footsteps. Great words, and a hat tip to Sidney Poitier from Denzel Washington, basically saying, I'll never be able to do what you've done. And too often, entertainers, a lot of times, won't acknowledge their inspirations. They'll say, "Oh, they'll say, who you listen to, or who do you look up to?" I don't really look up to anybody. I just you basically just did this on your own. Really, there had to be someone that you looked to for the inspiration. Somebody that you saw do it, and you said they did it. Maybe I can do it. Right? There's nothing wrong with giving the kudos, giving up the props. You know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with that. But a lot of times we don't want to do that. But we don't want to look a certain way. We don't, but that's not a sign of weakness. And you saw Denzel Washington, who is a great actor, giving up for the late Sidney Poitier. Obviously, he wasn't late at that time, but we're talking about a legend who passed away last night. And a lot of awards, a lot of recognition. 2009, President Obama awarded Poitier the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the nation's highest civilian honor, the highest one, saying that it's been said that Sidney Poitier does not make movies, he makes milestones of artistic excellence, milestones of American progress. That's what former President Obama said about Sidney Poitier. Now, besides his Oscar win, he was the recipient of other major honors: BAFTA, 2 Golden Globes, Grammy, Screen Actors Guild Lifetime Achievement Award, Kennedy Center honors. Lot. Funeral arrangements have not been announced just yet, but I wanted to take some time and just shout out a legend passing away. And we've been seeing a lot of folks from this golden era of Hollywood passing away. So rest in peace. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok, at The Diamond K Show. Of course, onfiretelevision.com. I am here daily, 8 a.m., 8 p.m. If you miss any episodes of the program, Apple Podcasts, of course, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, WRF Radio app, youtube.com/DJ Diamond K. I will be back 8 p.m. tonight for more of the show.